This is Colin McGuigan for IFL TV. Edward, it's actually been a while since I interviewed you. I can't remember the last. Actually, it would have been Orlando. You're now a men's health columnist. You're everywhere, mate.
Where have you been?
I have been on a few weeks off. Went to Vegas. Went to the Sphere to see you two. Unbelievable, mate. What a life.
What a life. Also, we have to say, stunning but murky backdrop this morning here in Monte Carlo, Monaco. Beautiful place. The rain has set in, unfortunately, ahead of a massive night on Saturday. Welcome back, Colm. It's good to see you. Delighted that you are fully engaged in Movember.
Here, it's good, isn't it?
With the tash.
You should be doing that too, to be fair.
Yeah, I might do it. I'm a bit late now. I don't know, where are we? November 2nd. Yeah, okay. Might do that.
Edward, we're back in Monaco. Obviously this, wow, look at that rain. This was like a big thing for a couple of years. Then there's that little break. You delighted to be back?
Yeah, the break was COVID. And it was a killer because it was one of our favourite events. It's a really unique event. Quite strange when you're watching it because 300 people, all in tuxedos. Prince Albert, many royalty there as well. And it's a tough event as well, I think, to make sure you're ready to perform at the highest level because it's a different kind of environment. The good news for Joe Cordina is he boxed here before. He had a great win here a few years ago, but it is a difficult environment to fight in. You know, it's not like walking out in front of 10,000, crazy fans. So you've got to be switched on. But one of our favourite events of the year, and an honour to be here in Monaco after a wild week in Cancun, and then Newcastle, Los Angeles, Dublin, Belfast, San Francisco and Phoenix. So a massive run coming up.
Let's first of all go into this card. Joe Cordina's in a tough fight, but I mean, the one that sticks out to me is that RAMAL Ali and Julissa Guzman. We seen that in New Orleans and it was incredible. Are you excited about that fight again and RAMAL Ali's chances?
Yeah, I mean, firstly on Joe, I think it's actually a very tough fight for Joe. I mean, I think Vasquez might struggle a bit with the size of Joe Cordina. Vasquez is a small super feather. Cordina's a big super feather. But I said to SHAKI Foster last week after his win, oh, Cordina next for you, and he went, he's got to get past Vasquez. And I said, oh, do you know him? He went, I spar with him. He went, he's tough man. And a lot of people felt like he beat Ray Ford, who I think is one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in America already, and you'll see that soon against Komatov. So I actually think it's a very tough fight for Joe Cordina, especially when everyone's talking about what might be next. RAMAL Ali, listen, massive props for her for taking a rematch. I mean, she can beat Guzman. And she was beating Guzman until she decided to start trading with Guzman. She's got to be super disciplined in this fight. And Guzman will fancy her chances of another knockout. I mean, she's already said that in all her media stuff. So I think that's a really tough, dangerous fight. But one that, we respect RAMAL for taking. I believe she'll come through as well. Look out as well for Ngannou. I mean, our little light flyweight world champion from South Africa. Back-to-back fights of the year. Like, he is always in thrillers and he's got a tough fight. And a good fight for SOKO as well. It's actually a really good card on Saturday night.
I was talking to Ngannu's father in the elevator this morning, actually, and he said that he thinks his son's going to, stardom awaits for him. He said this is, his chance on the big stage. Do you believe that's the case in that division?
Yeah, honestly, if you watch his fight on our Mexican show, where he went into the Mexicans' backyard, it was unbelievable. It was a war. Then we did a show in South Africa with him. Amazing. And Colin and the guys have done a great job for him. I would actually like to see him move up to flyweight to take those bigger fights, but he also wants to become South Africa's first undisputed champion, so we're going to have to move quickly, try and pick up those other belts. But I like him. I think he's a great character. I think the story's incredible, and he can really fight, and he's always non-stop action. I mean, a lot of these lighter weight guys, non-stop action from the first bell, and he's one of them.
I want to touch on the Joe Cordina SHAKI Foster situation. Will you look to sign SHAKI Foster now, or will it be like a one-fight deal against Joe Cordina next?
Yeah, we'll definitely talk to him about that. I mean, our priority is to try and get Joe to unify the division. And SHAKI Foster, the come from behind victory last week in the 12th round was incredible in Mexico. So, he's now giving himself that profile to move forward and make the Joe Cordina fight. So I'm sure there'll be a multi-fight offer for SHAKI Foster, and that would include a Joe Cordina unification.
Does that fight maybe get that big night in Wales for Joe Cordina? Is that big enough to warrant that big night there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously his profile isn't that of a Lee Wood or someone like that in the UK, but we might look to do that fight in America. You know, I think Joe obviously wants that stadium fight in Cardiff, but also we could do that fight in Vegas or New York. I think he'd have a lot of travelling fans as well. I think that would be a great box to tick. Joe makes absolutely no secret of the fact he just wants as much money as possible. Like he says it in every interview. He says it to me all the time, and I get it. You know, he's coming to the absolute prime of his career. He's not a young man. He wants to make as much money as possible. So, and he's good enough to fight anywhere in the world. So I think Joe will be looking at the numbers and decide from there where the fight would take place.
What's the situation with Rocky Hernandez? Where do you go from here with him, and what type of fight can we see him in next?
I mean, it was, you know, his manager messaged me and said his heart betrayed him. And what he meant by that was not that he quit, that his heart's too big because he couldn't bring himself to hold or just run. All he had to do was survive 3 minutes, and that was it. You know, it was over. And he just couldn't hang on. He just had to go to war, and he got stopped. So for me, Rocky Hernandez is an all-action fighter. Great for TV. I believe he's a world-class fighter. We'll bring him back early next year and then look to try and position ourselves to challenge for a world title again. But, you know, he lost to a brilliant fighter in SHAKI Foster, and he was winning the fight. I had it very tight, but I felt like he was just winning that fight, and he'll be back, and I believe he'll be world champion.
Mauricio Lara, potentially, what's the story with him?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a fight, those two. Lara against Hernandez. You've also, don't forget, you've got Eduardo Sugar Nunes, who, again, had another stunning knockout in Cancun. This guy's so heavy-handed. He's going to fight Rakimov in a final eliminator, which is an absolute filthy fight. So we've got a lot of Mexican guys bubbling around 126, 130, and I think they're all going to be in great fights.
There's been rumours that ZELFA Barrett is, well, you've said he's gone on the Dublin card, but there's been rumours it's against Costin Ion, who lost to Akib Fiaz. I think he dropped Fiaz in that fight. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's a name that's been mentioned. This is just a run out for ZELFA Barrett. We wanted to get ZELFA Barrett a big fight, which wasn't available at this point, and the fights that he wanted to take as well. But we're going to be putting ZELFA Barrett in a big fight early next year. But this is, I say a run out, still going to be competitive. That guy's a handful, but we need to make sure we keep ZELFA active. So we run him out in Dublin, and then he'll be in a massive fight early next year.
What is his route to a world title for ZELFA Barrett?
I mean, you know, I wanted him to fight Joe Cordina. Joe didn't think that was a fight that was right for him. Also, there was the Sugar Nunes fight. It's a very tough fight. But he just wants the biggest fights available, really. It's the same, like, I think there's no secret that a lot of these guys, some of them at a stage in their career where they want the big fights, they want the big money. So ZELFA's ready to go into any of those fights, UK or abroad. But the key for November 25th in Dublin is to keep him active.
Is there any more fights to be added to the Dublin or Belfast cards?
Belfast, yes. Not Dublin. Dublin is full now. I mean, we've got a huge card. You know, we've got loads of Irish action, some really good action. Emmett Brennan in a really good fight. And then you've got ZELFA Barrett. You've got Sky Nicholson for the interim title against Lucy Wildheart. You've got Paddy Donovan against Danny Ball. Great fight. You've got Thomas Carty in a good fight. Then you've got Gary Cully against Reese Mould. Really, really good fight. Massive fight for Gary's career. And then you've got Cameron Taylor. So that's a huge card in Dublin. Belfast as well. We know the 4 big fights on there. Selling really well. Through 5,000 already. And there will be one more fight added to Belfast.
What is that fight?
I'm not sure yet, actually. Otherwise, I just would have
All
told.
Irish type of fight?
Possibly, or perhaps one of our younger stars.
What about the Sonny Edwards B Rodriguez card? Are we expecting an announcement within the next 7 days?
Yeah, you are. There will be at least 3 Brits on that card. That's right, isn't it, Frank? Sonny Edwards? Yeah. So you have to check these things. Getting a bit like Warren, isn't I? Is that right over there? Got my notes? Yeah, so when are we announcing that?
Don't do it now.
Okay, next week. No.
Okay. With Lee Wood vacating, is it likely that we'll see the comment of Ray Ford on that card?
On that card, no. That fight, well, we don't have a deal with Komatov, so that could go to purse bids. We'd be looking to stage that fight early January. which could be the return of Dimitri Bivol as well. We're just planning that now. And for Lee Wood, Frank is in discussions with Nottingham Forest Football Club, looking at dates to bring him home, the big homecoming. And I think there's a very good chance that could be the Josh Warrington rematch. We're working on the dates now, and that's what we said we'd deliver for him, subject to the club providing those dates. That's what we want to do.
If that fight happens and Michael Conlan gets the win against Jordan Gill, would you like to make that rematch with Lee Wood? Do you think that's feasible?
Yeah, I think Lee Wood, Josh Warrington, Joe Cordina. I mean, there's so many big fights out there for Mick Conlan. I think first things first, come through Jordan Gill. Mick looks great with his new training team, Pedro Diaz in Miami. And as I said, selling really well, that fight. So that's a big night for him. And Jordan Gill's not going to be a pushover for him in Belfast. He's motivated. And Mick's going to have to be at his best to win that fight.
You touched on Dimitri Bivol return, someone that's obviously very hard to match. What's the likely opponent for Dimitri Bivol in January?
I mean, there's 3 or 4 of them. I don't want to tell you till we get it now, but it's very difficult to match him. Everybody wants a fortune to fight Dimitri Bivol. And it's quite frustrating, actually. You hope that... I know he's really, really good, but at the same time, you hope that people... Well, it's not like they're getting offered peanuts. People would want to take the chance to try and become a world champion. But I think the industry acknowledges the greatness of Dimitri Bivol, and it's very difficult to match him.
Is that likely to land in Vegas, that type of fight?
Yes, it is.
Moving on from that, when's the first quarter schedule likely to land? Normally by this time it's around about now.
Yeah, I think realistically, certainly by the Katie Taylor card. I mean, we are already in motion for January, February, March, even some events in April and May being locked in now. And the plan is always to build the schedule around those key pillars, those key moments. And for us, obviously, we made it clear that a couple of the fights that we want to make are Lee Wood, probably against Josh Warrington at the City Ground. We want to make Jack Catterall against Josh Taylor as well. And then once you start locking in those kind of fights, you build the schedule around it. Some big plans in America as well. But a lot of the work behind the scenes now, having locked in the schedule till December the 16th, is to lock in those plans. Obviously, Benn Eubank as well. So, you start locking in Benn Eubank, Taylor Catterall, Wood Warrington, and then you build everything around there. And we're already deep in those discussions.
You touched on that there, but, you've signed this deal with Japan. Frank done well getting that deal done. What's the story with a likely headliner in Japan?
Yeah, we've got a really interesting concept and format for Japan. It's going to be in January, and there'll be an announcement on that soon.
Anthony Joshua, I know you spoke to Coogan and it was, floated with the idea December 23rd. Looks unlikely now, so will you not have a show on December 23rd?
There's a small chance it could be December 23rd. He wants to go December 23rd. I think if we do that, we need to try and lock that in this week, really. It's 7 weeks this Saturday. We have a venue in place if we need it. We haven't yet started fully negotiating with opponents for that date. There's an outside chance he could go there. I mean, look, I've made no secret. I think he should fight Ngannou. I think it's a massive fight. I think it's one of the biggest fights in boxing. And if that fight, I don't think Ngannou would be ready for even January. But if that fight had serious legs for February, maybe he waits, I don't know. Obviously you got the Wilder situation, which he'll probably try and get Ngannou now as well. But AJ just wants activity. He's back in camp and pushing us for a fight in December.
Fury and Ngannou, would you want to bring that to Africa for a rumble in the jungle?
You mean AJ against Ngannou?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I think it sounds unbelievable. When I met with Francis Ngannou, he said to me against AJ in Africa. Rumble in the jungle, in the Congo, and listen, it's something I would absolutely love to do. Now, where does the money come from to make these guys satisfied with what they might make for that in the Middle East? I don't know Francis's contractual situation with anyone. I don't know if he's bound to another fight in any particular territory, but there are a lot of people that would like to stage that fight. And obviously, Saudi Arabia would be one of the front runners because they've just experienced Francis Ngannou. It was a great event, and I think they would love to do Joshua against Ngannou. It's massive, massive fight. But there's probably a lot of other territories that would like to do it as well. So I have already reached out to people from Saudi Arabia and also from Francis Ngannou's team. And I'll do more of that this week because we need to plan AJ's career over the next 12 months. So we need to know if that fight is even a possibility before we start making our moves.
If AJ doesn't go on December 23rd, does that mean there'll be no Matchroom show that weekend?
Yes, correct.
Moving on as well, obviously you've spoke about Benn Eubank, you spoke to COGAN about it. Where are we at with those discussions? Will we likely have an announcement within the next 7 to 10 days?
I think it's a very good chance, yeah. I mean, I've told everybody January. Where we're at now is final negotiations. I think that's the only way we can explain it, really. We don't have signed contracts, but we are in final negotiations to make that fight. And I believe we're going to make it. It's the biggest fight for both. But there is no fight out there for either that can make him this kind of money. So that's always a great start. There's a little bit of bad blood. There's a little bit of, oh, what happened last time? I want this time and so forth. And we get that. But there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. Myself, Frank, obviously DAZN, Calisal, and to make sure we get this fight. Everybody wants it, and I'm pretty confident you'll see it.
You said the COGAN it would likely land in either Spurs Stadium or Cardiff. Which of the two is more likely?
Everything's on dates. You know, they're not available on the same date, so that'll go down to the broadcaster, really. I mean, they're going to be the ones putting the money up, so it'll have to be a date that suits them, suits the schedule. We're happy with either stadium. Obviously, Cardiff has a roof, which is nicer in January, but Spurs is London and local, and either one would be a monster event.
You've spoken in interviews about maybe letting fighters go that don't want to take the fights that you believe are right at this stage of their career. We've recently seen, Fabio Wardley and Solomon Dakers, I believe, have both signed a deal with Queensbury. Have they both?
I don't know about Fabio Wardley. I know that Solomon Dakers, we had a matching rights position with Solomon Dakers. So what that means is that we can keep him if we want to keep him, or we feel like the money's, I say want's a bit of a harsh word because we like Solomon Dakers. He had an offer which they presented to us, which we said, mate, good luck, take it ASAP. We don't want to hold fighters back. If we don't feel that they have a big future with us commercially, and we don't feel, and what I said about letting fighters go, it's not just about fighters not wanting to take fights, because Solomon Dakers actually was someone that was up for all the big fights. But we have to look at it more commercially on the numbers and the value that fighters are delivering. And this isn't about Solomon Dakers. This is just on a general scale. Boxing has been very competitive, and everybody's been stumping up the money, working off ego to keep fighters. And we just had meetings recently where we said, look, if we're going to make the best schedule, if we're going to make the best fights, we need to get the business right. We need to make sure fighters are prepared to take the right fights. But also, we can't just be overpaying fighters, because you saw that with Showtime, put them out of business. So, we need to make sure that, and every fighter deserves to make as much money as possible, but the number has to work for us as a business as well. So Fabio, I don't know what he's done. He's managed by Dillian White, who I haven't spoken to for 3 months.
Would you like to keep Fabio Wardley?
Sure. Yeah, I love Fabio. We love him. He's been a big part of the team. He's never had a contract with Matchroom, nor did Dillian White. And that's how they want to work. About 6 months ago, we said we're not doing that anymore. We're not going fight by fight, because when we did fight by fight with Dillian, he ended up taking a Tyson Fury fight and we weren't involved. So we need to look at our business as well as their business. So, yeah, I don't know. I know there was talks of him when he did the Wardley fight doing a 2-fight deal. I don't know whether that was done. But yeah, Sol Dakers, we have matching rights, of which, after seeing the offer that he got, we definitely won't be matching.
You touched on the Showtime breaking down deal there. Is there a possibility that you add to your American stable with some of the PBC fighters that maybe don't have a broadcast deal now?
Again, I think it comes down to the number and the value. Like, we're not in a position now. When we came into the market, we were spending mad money, right? No one had heard of DAZN. Few people had heard of Matchroom. We had to overpay to sign fighters. We don't need to do that anymore. We're positioned as the premier, or one of the premier promotional companies in America. So we're there on merit, we're there on ability. But there are a lot of fighters contacting us at the moment saying, I don't have a date, I don't have a broadcaster, would you be interested? And the answer is yes, but again, at the right number, in the right fights. What we can't do anymore, which we've done in America before, is we sign you and we give you 2 easy fights and then we get a big one. And we pay a load of money for the easy fights that are absolute dog shit, no one wants to watch, no one's buying a ticket for. Do you understand? So I would rather spend the money on that fighter to make him in a big fight on the zone, rather than give him 2 run-outs that are just a complete waste of time. So we have to be stricter and harsher, and that's what I said about losing fighters, because we are having conversation with fighters where we're saying, this is the fight for you now. Oh, I just want another run-out. No, please stop using that word run-out. You just had a run-out. Now it's time to fight. Because, like I said, with misfits and with other products in the marketplace and other sports, we have to make sure the product is right. And the product, when we make great fights, the product is right. Boxing is very valuable to the broadcaster. So we mustn't make the mistakes that others have made. Now Showtime, the most recent example, where people just looked at boxing and went, no, it's not. It doesn't work. It's too expensive, and we're not getting the value. We got to change that, and that's what we're looking to do in 2024.
Final one from me. You got a bit of flack out in Saudi Arabia. I think more so maybe from the Fury camp. Every time they were asked a question about you or Anthony Joshua, the reply was frozen out in the cold. That type of situation. That potentially you are out in the cold in that situation in terms of you and AJ, this whole Fury situation, or do you think that fight is doable within the next 12 months?
I think we were definitely colder on Friday than we are now. We're much warmer now. We're quite toasty after that performance, because people realise AJ's a force in the heavyweight division, and Fury's wanted to freeze AJ out for a long time. And that's been part of the problem of making the fight. You see that from the comments. You've only got to look at what they say and the body language to know that they don't really want to give AJ the fight. It's like, it's funny to them that they're not fighting. Whereas for us, it's like, but they're delighted that we're out in the cold. But as I said, let's be honest, after Saturday night, we really ain't out in the cold. 1, because we beat Tyson Fury every day of the week. And 2, because we may end up getting the Ngannou fight and AJ will knock him out inside 6 rounds. So after Saturday, I'm pumped for the career of Anthony Joshua, because I believe he's going to come back and his best chapter is yet to write. I believe he's going to be world heavyweight champion. I believe he's going to beat Tyson Fury. I believe he can beat Deontay Wilder. I know he can beat Francis Ngannou. So the future is massive for Anthony Joshua. But it's okay, we work along. These guys, they don't like any criticism. For Tyson Fury to get paid all that money and not do the press conference after the Ngannou fight. Like, I've had situations with AJ. The Andy Ruiz fight, he was concussed. The doctor said, don't do the presser. He went out, he said, I can't not do the presser, it's embarrassing. Goes to do it. After the Usyk second fight, mentally where he was at. He broke down in tears at the presser. He still went. Never duck an interview, never duck the situation. Now you'll see Tyson Fury just disappear because he doesn't want the criticism. He bans TalkSport. He bans anyone that wants to question him. So we know he's fragile. But now we know he's fragile in the ring. So listen, I wouldn't be surprised if he retired. Honestly.
Before anything else?
Yeah. Honestly, I heard Spencer Oliver say it. I've heard rumblings of it. I wouldn't even be surprised.
In your own mind, if I was giving you the option now of yes or no, that's the only way you can answer the question. Does Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fight within the next 12 months? If you're a betting man.
I mean, the hope in me says yes. But you just never know what this guy's going to do, honestly. Like, nothing that he does would surprise me. And listen, respect to him. Respect to John Fury, I think's fucking hilarious. Shane Fury, who I met him the other night, seems like a nice bloke. What they've done is incredible. But they do talk shit at times, and so do I. But if they want to call me out on that, don't expect me not to call you out on it. And when you box like you did on Saturday and you tell everyone you're the second coming of Muhammad Ali, don't expect people to... you've gone over there for a cash grab and you've just got beat by a bloke that's never had a professional fight before. What do you think that comes without criticism? You've got to be bigger than that. So listen, he'll be better for the Usyk fight, I'm sure. But who knows whether it will happen.
Eddie Hearn. We'll catch up tomorrow. Thanks very much, mate.